Welcome to Tooltech Geek. I'm going to talk about knives that have storage in the handles that we could use to store useful items. But first I want to go back in time a little bit. That was my special effect. So when I was a kid, there was all these like Rambo knives, and I even got one of those. So basically it's a knife that has a storage compartment, and it came with a survival kit, a sharpening stone. It seemed really cool at the time for me as a kid. As a knife that was terrible, it was bolted with a little nut into its handle, which made it very fragile, but in my imagination it was the coolest thing in the world. Then some years later, Schrade apparently made one that was all machined in one piece. So that solved the problem of the weakness of the storage compartment. Apparently this came with a ferro rod, looks like, and some screwdriver bits. They always have these fancy names: Extreme Survival Special Forces. So clearly not to be taken seriously. But this was discontinued, so apparently I can imagine this will be expensive to machine, and there is a very small market of people that really want this. Another example I've seen when I was kind of researching this is one from Knife of Alaska, Extreme Defense Survival. This has the handles which have like little cutouts there, and other than that is a pretty normal fixed blade knife. Now to access this storage, it comes with a little Allen wrench, so it requires tools to disassemble. It's not very practical, so imagine in some emergency if you lose that Allen wrench, you cannot access your very useful items. So that was considered maybe a defect. For that reason, then somebody developed a similar knife that requires no tools to open the handle. So this is a Zerko Knives Cash blade, and it's also a fixed blade, and in the tang it has a cutout, and then in the handles it has a bit of a pocket, such that just by moving this lever you can open the handle without any tools. So this is the object of a Kickstarter that finished recently, and they are hoping they haven't shipped at the time of this recording, but it's pretty current. It was barely funded, so that makes me think still that there is a very small market for this. Not too many people seem to be interested. That may also explain why this one is discontinued. However, you can still find this type of knives that are very inexpensive, such as this. I think it's in the $15 range, or for $20 there are some very similar ones, but probably not very useful. I myself was interested in this concept of combining a knife and a little kind of survival thing. I find it useful to carry band-aids and a couple little things for using during the day. I usually carry them in these 3D printed boxes that I made, and this is problematic because all this can fall. I'm thinking maybe I should tie them up with some kind of string, including these tiny tools that I'm currently selling on Etsy. And so a while ago I made a bunch of these basically storage boxes with a knife included, which is just a utility blade, and it also have a 4mm insert, which you can use to either attach a larger driver, or there's plenty of 4mm bits, so you could use one of those. If you put a magnet, this is a little bit more secure. In any case, I didn't like put it for sale or anything, in part because this has no locking here, so it's probably not tremendously safe. If you tighten that, it stays in place by friction, but I think this is not extremely safe or marked all yet. However, I like the idea of not needing any tools to open that, so that's cool. So in any case, now back to the real thing. There is a bunch of utility knives that have storage for blades. So a long time ago I got this DeWalt. It has storage for 5 blades, so that's not a whole lot, but you can still, you could fit things that are pretty thin. So let's see what kind of space it has. Check real quick. This is a very cheap caliper. But let's see, the width here is about 4mm, and the depth of this compartment, let's see, it's in the 8mm, and then how long this will be approximately in the 50mm. So it's not a whole lot of space, but something. Now recently I found this model that has room for 10 blades, so that is much bigger. I even made a short calling it the Mary Poppins, in reference to Mary Poppins have a bag. So this has almost 1 centimeter wide. There is a plastic tab in the middle that could be in the way if you want to put big stuff. I guess one could take this apart and chop off that tab. So we have almost like 9mm of room here, and then let's see a depth. Depth is what? It's 14 really. I think I'm measuring that right. I scored 14, and then let's see if it goes to 50 or not in terms of length. Yeah, it could fit on 50. There's even some recesses there where in principle you could put even more stuff. Now, one problem with that storage is there's some holes that connect there with the blades. So a while ago I was trying to put stuff, and I had some tweezers that got into this part of the knife, and they kind of jammed this mechanism. So I had to remove the tweezers, and they got all mangled. So I don't recommend to put tiny things that will go there and jam the mechanism. One solution for that could be to make a little maybe some kind of box or something that you could remove, but will prevent things from flying all around, and could be like maybe a 3D printed one. So all that said, this is a little kind of big for EDC, and I started looking at smaller ones. This is a workpro that I saw on Amazon and I ordered it. This has a pocket clip. This is almost, could be an EDC item. It's a bit bulky, but it starts to get closer to an EDC item. It has a back lock here, as nice, and a place here to push your thumb. The quality of this part doesn't seem super like well finished. It's kind of bent, but like, I don't know, I thought it didn't look super like a tight finish, but it seems to work fine. So we can replace the blade. Here's this little kind of need to push it close to the blade. It makes me nervous. And now it is loaded. And so I'm gonna close the knife by pushing that. It has a big snap, and this is kind of nice because it has a spring, so it opens with a bit of a fidget factor. These blades are held by a magnet. Okay, and I'm gonna mount. Let's see how much space there is. This has a bit of an irregular shape, but let's see if we can measure something. The width here seems to be 5.2. It's kind of in line with the one for 5 blades, which carries 5 blades. And the depth is a little tricky to measure. Seems like has space for blades here, but then it is kind of close by. So now if we can establish very well what is the space that you actually have. It's probably in the 15mm range, and then there's kind of a lot of space here, like, yeah, there's only 50. So it's pretty much similar to the space in the one that holds 5 blades, but it has a kind of a nicer fan mechanism to open versus these ones that have just a piece of plastic that has to bend. That will make me think that this may break if you just repeatedly open and close it. Don't know about this one, but it seems kind of more professional with a metal latch and springs here and here. So this is more complex in a way, and it has a pocket clip and all. There's many utility knives with storage. These are just a few, but I think it's could be interesting to hold small items that could fit here, such as band-aids. Yes, I guess you can have extra utility blades, but I don't replace them that often. So this is kind of a proposal to have a EDC item with storage without having to make it yourself, and without having to buy these really gimmicky, so pretty large and not very serious knives. Alright, that concludes, and we can go back to reality. Have a nice day.